You're listening to I Have Some Notes, a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported.
Scott, I have a pitch for you. Venom was cool and profitable. What about an origin movie for another character from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery?
Oh, hell yeah, come at me.
All right. Scorpion?
No.
Craven?
No.
Rhino?
Done that.
Chameleon?
No.
Black Cat?
Nah.
Tombstone?
Eh.
Morbius, the living vampire?
Bingo, that's the one. We're making a Morbius movie.
I have some notes. Welcome everyone to I Have Some Notes, the movie podcast with cuts, keeps, punch-ups, and tweaks on mediocre movies as suggested by you. I'm your host, Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver.
And today we are live here in your homes and hearts to discuss Morbius. Hello, everyone. Hello, those of you listening and watching on the stream. Hello to you listening just as an audio feed later. You're have a good commute. Get those dishes done. However you're joining us, thank you for being here. Let's. It's Morbin time. It is Morbin time. We've been
at long
building
last.
up. Yeah, building up to a big season opener after a long break, and oh boy, the anticipation has been really. Really palpable for Morbius.
Yeah. A bloodlust of enthusiasm for a new season of I Have Some Notes, one might say. Welcome back, guys. This is our first episode in a while. How's it going? How are you?
Yeah, how was your summer? Did you watch good movies during the summer?
I watched some great movies during the summer.
I did too.
Yeah.
Also watched some great plays. I was at the Fringe with the debutantes, Robin and Glenna, who are friends of the show. Some great Dungeons and Dragons improv. I just had a great summer all along. How about you?
I also had a summer of fringing at the Fringe because I was also in a Fringe show. Not as arguably successful as yours. I heard nothing but great things, but didn't get a chance to see it because I was working in between all my shows. So
you got that hustle.
I was a bad friend and did not come to either of your shows because I'm a big COVID scaredy cat and I was afraid.
That's fine. Half our cast got COVID, so you probably made the right call.
One of our cast members got heat exhaustion because of the extreme heat over the week of the Fringe and collapsed on stage. So
I just got green onion cake trots. So
there you go.
Yeah, as you do during Fringe, a tradition.
As you do. Greg, your summer was good though?
Yeah, I didn't do any Fringe shows. I didn't have my own show, but I did start doing a lot more like coloring and stuff like that, and more video editing and things like that. So that on the creative side, it was a lot of fun. I got out to the mountains, which was great. So, and I did make an actual concerted effort to watch good movies during the summer because the rest of my year is full of watching so many mediocre ones. So it was a good call.
Do we want to quickly, because like we shouldn't make the good doctor wait much longer, but just quickly, what was the best movie you saw in the last 2 or 3 months?
Ooh.
I can start if you want to think about it.
Go ahead.
And also, I'd love to hear it from the chat. Anyone in the chat, hit us with the best movie you've watched since the last time you listened to a new episode of I Have Some Notes. I saw Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Was brilliant. We cried. It was just one of the most touching, fun, cute, wholesome. Watch it with kids and grandma. Watch it alone. It's great. It was a beautiful movie. I highly recommend Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
Scott?
I caught Un Flic on Canopy. It's an older French film. It is from 1972. It's kind of like a cops and robbers movie. And there's a great heist scene in the middle of it that's like filmed real time. It was solid. I would recommend it. Seek it out on Canopy.
I think unquestionably Coda was the best film I watched during the summer. I know that was like, is it 2021 that won Best Picture? I think. Or is it 2020? I don't remember. But I understand why now. It's a very good, feel-good movie. I really, really enjoyed it.
Fantastic.
Very good movies.
hopefully folks in the chat let us know some of the good ones they watched, because we also watched Morbius.
Yeah. It's a movie that we watched.
It sure is.
Actually, Liam, just right before we get to Morbius, you might notice that there's only 3 of us. We had billed Abdul Malik to come on the show. Unfortunately, just due to some technical problems, we weren't able to get him on. So we're bummed about that. But please, we all did watch his movie Peace by Chocolate. Highly recommend you go out and check it out. Check it out. You said it was on. Is it on Canopy? You said
it is available on Canopy right now.
Available on Canopy and Apple TV and.
I watched it on YouTube, just on demand on YouTube. So
yeah. So yeah, go check it out.
If you're watching this, you're already on YouTube. So what's the excuse?
Yeah, wait until after our show though. Anyway, Morbius.
Yeah. The villainous the trying to make a Spider-Man movie without Spider-Man in it. Did you guys? We'll start with this. Were you familiar with Morbius, the character?
Yes. I watched the Spider-Man cartoon in the 90s, and that is where I remember Morbius from, and his desire for plasma. And he drank through his hands because it was too violent for him to bite anybody. So he had like lamprey hands. And he would suck your blood out with them.
Yeah.
That is my distinct memory of Morbius.
Yeah. My partner Amanda, who's in the chat, asked me. She's like, "Well, what's like? I don't know anything about this character. What's the deal?" I'm like, "Well, sometimes Spider-Man's running around and like a vampire guy jumps out to get him.
Yeah,
that's about it. It's a vampire guy. He doesn't like Spider-Man.
The vampire guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of, as I understand it, in recent years shifted because he's one of those tragic villains in a way.
Yeah.
He's shifted more into being kind of an anti-hero, the way Venom has, in the comics at least. And I feel that that's what they were kind of going with this movie too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they try to put him in a much more sympathetic light. The problem is that they make kind of everybody kind of have a bit of a sympathetic light in the movie, which muddies the actual villain a little bit, but I might be getting ahead of myself there.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible to make a movie about a character like this. I mean, there's a 3 or 4 seasons of a show about Batman's butler in World War II or 1 or whatever. So like you can do it's not impossible to take an obscure character from some property you own and try to spin a yarn out of it. So I don't begrudge them for trying. I don't think it's wholly unreasonable to try to make a Morbius movie. In the same way, I don't think it's a wholly unreasonable idea to try to make a Kraven the Hunter movie, which they're doing. I just don't have high hopes based on past results.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sony or Morbius isn't really an interesting movie in itself, but what I think is interesting about it is Sony's continued inability to make a superhero film. Like they're really, really bad at it. And I think the ones that they've made that are good or passable have been that's just been out of sheer luck as far as I'm
been
concerned.
Kind of in spite of everything.
Yeah. Like, I mean, they got obviously the first couple Spider-Mans were great back in the Tobey Maguire days. Everything else since then has
everything but Into the Spider-Verse, and I think that skews their data where it's a bunch of 20% and then 100%. If you average it out, you get the same 58 that Marvel movies have. It's really nobody check that math. But
yeah, it's funny to me that they had such a critical and I think financial hit with Into the Spider-Verse, and they weren't like, let's double down on that. It was more like, it was still like, let's continue trying to do the Marvel thing for some reason. Which is really strange because, like, you know, you don't have a collection of heroes to hang your universe around. Spider-Man's pretty narrow, and you've got to, like, I guess you could, like, they're trying to do superhero stuff, but like, why wouldn't they do more stuff like maybe Black Cat or something like that, who could be more considered a hero than maybe some of these other guys? I don't know.
Yeah, because the majority of the Spider-Man secondary characters are bad guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's got a very robust rogues gallery.
I will say this is one of the few Spider-Man movies where they don't kill Uncle Ben, so I guess props for that.
Yay!
Also, it would have been very funny if somehow Uncle Ben still dies in this movie that Spider-Man's not in. Yeah,
I just love that they keep trying. They keep trying to foist the Sinister Six upon us. You know, at the end of this movie, when we get all the post-credit stuff, they're doing it again. Like, and it felt just as ham-fisted and forced when they tried to do it with Amazing Spider-Man 2. You know, it's it's one of those things where it's just like, you gotta know when to fish or cut bait.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give this movie too much credit or too much benefit of the doubt, but I do understand that like COVID really fucked up the schedule, and so parts of me want to just give them a pass for their, like, you know, they tried to get it done. You know, I don't know how much that is to blame, but I do understand that the production was seriously set back by various pandemic protocols. So, but also still, a bunch of other movies came out.
You actually had a really good analogy for the making of this movie.
Yeah,
in your Letterboxd review, and I think that our listeners deserve to hear that repeated here.
Yeah, I watched Venom: Let There Be Carnage. No one made me. I chose to do that. And it's junk food. Venom: Let There Be Carnage is junk food movie. I like junk food. It's pretty empty. It's pretty hollow. And also, like junk food, these movies are consistent. You can walk into a movie theater pretty much any time and see some equivalent of Venom: Let There Be Carnage, whether it's a by the numbers rom-com or a, you know, stupid kids movie. There's a lot of junk food movies consistently mediocrely available, like Cheetos, right? Like junk food. If Venom: Let There Be Carnage is a handful of Cheetos, this movie is one of those like weird gnarly Cheetos that's all like clumpy and it's too much of the corn dust and it's like crunchy and there's like weird pockets of cheese dust. And you're just like, how did this get in the bag? How did this happen? And it is like, for better or for worse, like movies like this come out of a Hollywood machine that spurts out little cheese puff junk food movies every week. And things like focus groups, things like studio notes, reshooting and editing based on those studio notes, those are part of the factory working. And there is a reasonable margin of error that suggests 1% of the time you're going to get a chunky fucked up one in the bag. That is Morbius. Morbius is a gnarly Cheeto in that it, despite everyone's best efforts, it just came out all weird and gross and gnarly. And I don't doubt everyone tried their best. So, yeah, just fascinating that it's like, how did this get in the bag? Who let this happen? So, yeah, that was my spot.
That ended the conversation. That was perfect. A perfect analogy.
Because if listeners of the show will know, I sometimes get a little salty towards some junk food movies kind of made without heart or without any motive but to fill
with
a line item
in their eyes
in the quarter. Yeah, we need to have a movie out in late Q4. Make a new RoboCop movie. Who cares? But also sometimes I'll watch those, and the same time sometimes I'll eat Doritos. But this one was so bad that I kind of like, I don't even like love it ironically. I don't love it. I shouldn't say that, but like it was just like,
no,
weird to look at. It was just like, what is going on here?
It fascinates you.
That fascinates the word.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, it was poorly edited, and I think that was part of it. It's strange that, to me, it felt a little claustrophobic. In that the movie didn't have like a large scope. It actually felt like most of the time you were like in an apartment with somebody or a very small room. Like the only time that you get out into like a larger sort of set piece is the ship. But even then, like, after you've done with the establishing shot of the ship, you're in like a little lab, and the fight sequence that takes place on the ship is through a bunch of like corridors and things like that, right? So it's very it feels like it's almost always really compressed. And there's scenes where Morbius is flying through New York. However, like because it's nighttime, and I think most of the time everything's framed really tight, you just don't. I just feel like I couldn't really breathe when I was watching this movie. So
the movie is really tightly focused on Michael Morbius, and you don't really get to see the world he lives in.
No,
like
so much so that like we'll get into this after we hit the trailer summary or the plot summary, but like so much so that the story between Morbius and his best friend just really didn't flesh out because of it. Because it was so tightly focused on Morbius himself.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna. I like to think our listeners listen along or have watched the movies along with us, but I don't blame you if you have not watched Morbius. And hopefully we can save, but just in case you need a refresher on exactly the film we're talking about. Released in April of 2022, directed by Daniel Espinosa, written by Matt Sazma and Burke Sharpless. Of Power Rangers. Oh, friend of the show, Power Rangers. Cool. Cast, of course, Jared Leto. Interesting choice for Dr. Michael Morbius. Matt Smith as Milo. Adria Arjona as Martine Bancroft. Jared Harris, Tyrese Gibson, and Al Madrigal also contribute roles. Scott, you want to hit him with the trailer summary, and we can really sink our teeth into this vampire movie?
All right. Dr. Michael Morbius has spent his life searching for the cure to a rare genetic blood disorder to save both himself and his rich childhood friend Milo. Running out of time and options, Morbius resorts to testing an experimental serum made with vampire bat DNA on himself. And while the serum cures his illness, it comes with unexpected side effects. As vampire bats famously have super strength, super speed, and weird smoky teleportation, Morbius now has all of these powers, as well as an unquenchable thirst for blood. But when Milo also takes the serum against Morbius's wishes, the stage is set for the two childhood friends turned living vampires to end up in a deadly clash.
Yeah, do we want to talk about the weird smoky teleportation right off the top? He's like a Dragon Ball Z character. Like it really, he's just tooling around on a cloud.
And I mean, he flies without wings later on. Like it is very Dragon Ball Z. Yeah. It's an interesting power set that he gains from a tiny flying rodent with a very minuscule body mass. But I mean, okay. Oh, magical purple capes. Yep. Thanks, Amanda. Also pointing that out in the chat live here.
Yeah, his whole outfit smoked. Like it was really.
Yeah, it's strange. Also, like in the comics, he looks like vampire Morbius all the time, but handsome Jared Leto's got to be handsome, so he only kind of vamps out Buffy style from time to time. Which is a choice.
Aesthetically had big Buffy energy for sure.
Oh yeah.
And yet none of the things we learned about good vampire storytelling from Buffy.
Yeah.
No.
Which, I mean, that effectively just makes this Jekyll and Hyde, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kinda.
It's kind of really like just like, I mean, I guess that's kind of interesting in and of itself a little bit, like vampire plus Jekyll and Hyde, two historic creatures or whatever. It's kind of fun, but like the movie's just doesn't.
Well,
it's boring, and there's nothing nothing really to hang your hat on.
Because it doesn't commit to any one of its possible thrusts. It could be a cool vampire horror movie. It could be a Jekyll and Hyde, science gone mad body horror movie. It could be a superhero movie, but it's none of those.
Yeah, it doesn't land on anything.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned Jekyll and Hyde, because there are two other Spider-Man villains who are more Jekyll and Hyde than Morbius. And those are the Green Goblin and the Lizard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and they've already done a Lizard movie. So they've already done the Jekyll and Hyde movie. And yet here they are like, let's do it again with Morbius.
Well, to go back to the sort of the body horror element of it, there's the scene where he's getting strapped into the table and he looks all gaunt and sick and getting ready to it's Morbin time. It's getting ready, and I'm like, oh, this has like big Reanimator vibes, like body horror. And I was like, oh, this is like, as I'm watching this movie and in the days after, I'm like, how is this not like The Fly, like a body horror style, grotesque transformation story like Jekyll and Hyde, like The Fly. And I really wanted to be able to make this comparison soundly, but I'd never seen The Fly up until recently, so that I could be like, this movie should have done what The Fly did. I went and watched The Fly to make sure I knew what I was talking about.
And
The
that
Fly
means
is sick.
Yeah, some good came out of watching Morbius for Liam, because it led him to watch The Fly, which is a great movie.
Aaron says in the chat that they needed to let the magic bats out of the tube in his lab. They looked very stressed out. I thought that was funny that there was just like in his lab there was a constant bat tornado. like bats don't do that. They hang out upside down and they rest or whatever. Like how
they fly around in the. You don't give them anywhere to hang or sit. They're just, of course, they're just gonna fly in a tornado.
Yeah, they also don't get fed. Apparently, they're just around.
His tube should have just been like a pile of dead bats. That's really what it should have been.
Aesthetically cool, very nonsense.
Yeah.
Like a lot of this movie. Yeah. I'm going to put this out there. Okay, we've already started touching on some of the terrible things about this film. Is there anything in this movie that you guys actually liked?
More Al Madrigal. I was excited to see him as one of the FBI agents. He was the funny one. He was the only funny thing in this movie. So yeah, I like Al Madrigal, and it was cool to see him and stuff, because I only ever know him from a Daily Show correspondent.
Yeah, I think that's a hard pass for me. I'm afraid not to just like shit on your positive thing. I did not like Al Madrigal in this movie at all. I don't know if there's something about his persona that's very difficult for me to take seriously. I don't know if it's a combination of his voice and cadence, but he doesn't feel like an actor to me. And like it did feel like he was doing bits the entire time.
That's fair.
So it was like, yeah, it was a little weird, because I mean, like probably one of the sins that this movie is that it takes itself a little too seriously, and even like adding Al Madrigal was almost like too much of a tonal shift for me.
Fair.
I like him otherwise, but
yeah,
in this movie I did not.
Amanda mentioned Matt Smith in the live chat, and I kind of agree. He's having fun in this movie in a way that elevates it a little bit. And I think it's because Matt Smith is aware of the kind of movie he's in, and he's just leaning into it.
Yeah.
And he chews the scenery, and it kind of works. His performance kind of works for me, and it brought his character a little more alive than most of the rest of the cast. Mm-hmm. So, like, kudos to Matt Smith. He put in a pretty good performance. But the one thing I actually wanted to mention was there are some Dracula allusions in the script which are wasted on this script. They're really good, and I liked them, and they're in a bad movie, and I'm sad about that.
Such
like the ghost ship. Dracula turns up in England on a ghost ship where everyone's been killed by a vampire, and sure enough, he goes out into international waters. with a group of mercenaries, and the ship comes back. There's only one living person left, his Renfield, the doctor, Dr. Bancroft, and him, the vampire. So like that's just an example of a really good Dracula illusion in a rather lackluster vampire movie.
I kind of that is okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say I agree with your point on Matt Smith. I thought he was the one bright spot of the entire movie. He's like you said, he knew what movie he was in. He was having a good time and he was hamming it up.
He knew what movie he was in. He thought he knew what movie he was in. He thought he was in Venom: Let There Be Carnage, and he got to be Woody Harrelson. But he's in a much worse movie than that already fine junk food movie that has a campy performance by Got You in the Scenery. He was. It's really sad that like the best this movie could have hoped for still would have been Venom: Let There Be Carnage, and Matt Smith is the only one who like hits that mark. Matt Smith's good. I also I feel for him. I really hope House of the Dragon is good because he has been in some stinkers lately. Because I watched Last Night in Soho, and as a big Edgar Wright fan, that was really disappointing. He's good in that, but it's not good. He's good in this, but it's not good. And also, his companion when he was Doctor Who is now Nebula in the MCU, and he's Morbius's friend.
Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes maybe it's time to get a new agent or something like that. Like there do seem to be certain actors and actresses who just can't find the right projects for them, and Matt Smith does seem to be one of them, unfortunately.
Hey, Matt Smith's got to eat, and sometimes you take what is offered to you, right?
Yeah. I didn't dislike Last Night in Soho. It's just kind of Edgar Wright's most uneven movie, I would say. But I still had a decent time. So
fair.
I'll give you that, Matt Smith. That one was okay.
Here's a weird thing that we all agreed that we liked. The end credits.
And that's not to do like a Muppets like when it was over.
We all commented kind of independently of one another. These end credits are pretty sick, actually. Like, had a really cool cyberpunk vibe. They looked really slick, and it was like, these credits are wasted on this film. These should have been Blade Runner credits. What went wrong?
Lori Plant in the chat says of Matt Smith, he said he had fun and he did his best. He liked his character, and after that, he was out of his hands, which is true. I mean, like, you don't, as an actor, like, I mean, you could read a script and think it sounds all right. And then, you know, the movie gets made 3 times, right? It gets made on the page, and then it gets made when you're filming it, and then it gets made in the edit bay. And you never really know what's going to come out of it, right? And Star Wars famously, like the original Star Wars famously sucked before the right editor got a hold of it, right? So,
yeah. And I mean, nobody goes into making a film expecting that they're going to be making a terrible film.
Yeah.
Like even the people who made Birdemic had to think on some level, we're making a good movie, guys. We're in this. We're going to do it. And then Birdemic happened. And, you know.
Yeah, it's that cognitive dissonance between like your skill level and what you're actually putting out into the world that makes watching a bad movie so much fun, like Birdemic. This one, I wouldn't consider this to be like a so bad it's fun to watch movie. It was mostly, I wouldn't say it's painful. I think it's like I said, it's just too bland and boring.
Yeah.
There's just not enough
bad made junk food.
Yeah, exactly. Just not enough meat on the bones for that vampire to sink his teeth into, and it's just unfortunate for everyone involved, I guess. I don't know. I mean, like, I guess it's not. You look at like who the director is and writers are, and like maybe it's not that surprising when you've written Power Rangers and you've directed Life, which you've also done on the show. You know, Life is a much better movie, I think, but also like lots of holes. Just seems like I feel like do you get the sense that like with Morbius that there was a lot left on the cutting room floor? Oh,
I get not so much cutting room floor, but I think partly because of the pandemic delaying things, but also, like I said, you can see the focus group, you can see the studio notes, you can see the stuff they went and reshot and then tried to edit based on the studio notes and focus groups. One of the things I noticed about this movie, it's really hard to tell the difference between his ship and the actual lab that he works in. It's all the locations of where those things take place are really fuzzy. Yeah. And my guess is that it wasn't like poor planning or like someone just didn't care to make sure they looked different. I think they have a version of the movie took place on a ship, a version of the movie that took place in a lab, kind of tried to marry the two. And they're like, I hope no one notices that like we're using a scene from the ship lab in the scene that's supposed to be in the lab. Nobody pay attention that closely. This is meant to be played at 14-year-olds' birthday parties. Like it's not a real movie. And that's my thing, is that it's not so much stuff that got left on the cutting room floor. It's that stuff got like mashed together exquisite corpse style to try to make something that appeased too many masters.
And what better way to hide that than to turn down the brightness on all of the scenes so that you can't really see anything.
No, sorry, that's because vampires can't go in the light.
Oh, right, vampires, so it's really dark.
So it's gotta be a dark movie.
Yeah. Except that they make a point of saying that he can go into the light. There's that diner scene with him and what's her name? Martine?
I was joking, but yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny because like I remember when me and Aaron were watching it, like the joke that he's supposed to be reaching for a cup and the cup is in a sunbeam. Mm-hmm. And then she kind of goes and he's like, oh, I'm not that kind of vampire. And like it was edited so poorly, like they just neutered the joke. And like mm-hmm. we had to sit there and sort of like analyze ourselves what just happened after we watched that scene. Like, wait, what's going on here? So that's just like an example of like how poorly things were going in the edit bay.
One of the criticisms we had of Venom was the big climactic final fight scene was very hard to follow because of the frenetic editing and the really dark lighting. And I'm glad to see that the producers heard that criticism and then doubled down on it to spite us and made an even more confusing and even darker climactic fight scene, which is even harder to follow. Because wow, that final fight scene is hard to watch. And I don't mean because it's bad. I mean, literally it is hard to watch. You can barely follow what's going on. It is nuts.
The key is by that point in the movie,
he shoots a bat laser at someone. Like
by that point in the movie, you're also just you don't care. It's like I'm not trying that hard to see what they're doing because I'm not invested in this in the least.
I was just more like, is it time? Is this over? Yeah.
Amanda in the
comments, he wins. I get it.
Yeah. Did point out. Yeah, they go to all that trouble to make a money printing lab or get his hands on a counterfeit bill lab so he can do his mad science. We never see it again. I think it's where he concocts the antidote. I think that's what that was for.
Yep.
But it's not like really clear. And then once he's got his antidote, he's out of there. So yeah, that's another location, Amanda.
That clearly mostly hit the cutting room floor. Yes.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed speaking of the blood and the serum and stuff. I really enjoyed every scene where he was drinking from a blood bag because I did not buy any time that he grabbed one of those things and he like worked it or whatever. I did not buy that he was actually drinking anything, and it was like weird because he was like he's gripping the bottom of it, so it actually seemed like he was squeezing the bottom, so like there's actually no chance of something coming out the end. It was almost like he was doing it purposely. I don't know, like just weird, just lots of weird decisions in this movie that just didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. I also think it should be noted that the trailer, the trailer has a bunch of stuff that's not in the movie, and that's very funny.
Yeah, they put together the trailer before they actually finished the final edit of the movie.
Yeah, always the mark of a quality film. Yeah.
So.
No, this movie needs to be out by a certain date. We need to do a trailer for it to promote it, but we're not done the movie. I don't care. Get that trailer out.
Well, the funny thing about that is that this movie was delayed many, many times. Like some due to COVID, some due to like other reasons, I think reshoots and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, they had plenty of time to craft this one into like a decent movie, but nope.
Yeah. But yeah, trailers are hard. They're trying to put their best foot forward, right? Like business is a tricky thing to try to run. You know, Scott, life as a business owner can be hectic, to say the least. Wouldn't you agree, Scott?
Oh, I'd agree for sure.
Well, you know, for any business owners that might be listening, Alberta Blue Cross understands that too. They offer flexible health, dental, life, disability coverage for your employees. Even better, you can let your staff enroll and manage their coverage at any time on any device. That makes life easier for them and for you. I know we made this beautiful, smooth transition, but my employer uses Alberta Blue Cross, and I get to manage my own coverage, and it is extremely handy. So, personally can vouch for the usability of the Alberta Blue Cross interface. So you've got this, says Alberta Blue Cross, when it comes to group coverage for your small business. And Alberta Blue Cross has got your back. To learn more and explore your options, head to ab.bluecross.ca.
You know, Liam, you mentioned Matt Smith is in House of the Dragon right now, which is a spin-off of Game of Thrones.
Well, there's the famous saying from Game of Thrones, Lannister always pays their debts.
No, I was actually thinking of the other one, which is Winter is Coming.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
And that is true here in Edmonton as well. And energy usage for all Albertans will be increasing. So now is a great time for listeners to look at their utility bills and ensure they're on the best plan. Albertans have a choice of who they pay their utility bills to, and Park Power is happy to provide free, no-obligations comparisons. If you decide to switch providers, it's easy, and you can feel good knowing that you're supporting a local business and helping give back to your community with your utility bills. You can learn more right now at parkpower.ca. Just slipped those plugs right in there.
Like so many, I don't have a segue, and I'm not going to try. We segue in, we're not segueing out smoothly at all. It's a bumpy, turbulent rise.
Yep.
Brace yourself, put your chair in the upright position as we return to the second half of this episode of I Have Some Notes. I think we've definitely picked apart this movie well enough. There were things to like about it. Our listeners had thoughts, to be sure. But you guys, how do we fix this? How do we make this, at the very least, on the same level as Venom Let There Be Carnage?
Oh boy.
I can start.
Sure.
Because I think for me, the central thing that doesn't work about Morbius is his relationship, like Morbius's relationship to Milo, which isn't his real name. I forget what his real name is, but he's called Milo because
it's Lucian.
Lucian, there you go. When the two of them meet as children, they meet in is it kind of like I guess it's like some sort of home for medically challenged kids. That's
like a boarding school, sort of.
Yeah, something like that. And there, he meets Lucian and calls him Milo because he thinks that this kid is just gonna die, and then he's gonna, because it's a school full of sick kids or whatever. He's like, you're just gonna die, and someone else will come and take your place, basically.
I think it was the idea was the last kid was Milo, and the next kid will be Milo. You're all Milo.
Yeah, you're all Milo. You're disposable. Is basically what he was saying to, and that name sort of ends up being, it's supposed to be I think it's supposed to be cute, because then they continue to call him Milo through the rest of his life. And I think at one point, Matt Smith tells Morbius that he gave him his name, which is awful. You gave him a terrible name. It's you gave him a name that's sort of just disposable. And that's just sort of a symptom of how their relationship began on such a bad foot. But not only that, Morbius, Milo ends up getting really sick. Well, I think they're getting dialysis or something like that. Mm-hmm. And his machine malfunctions. Morbius fixes it with a spring or something like that. And that is the impetus for Morbius to be sent off to a school for gifted kids, because he's so smart that he managed to fix this machine all by himself in an emergency. So he ends up leaving Milo within I don't know, it feels like a couple weeks of them meeting. So it's really like it doesn't feel like they're friends at all, you know. And then we don't really get to spend much time with Milo Morbius after that. It's actually like it's kind of a shock to me that they're still friends, because the way that the film is edited, it's just like Morbius takes off and it's from the school, and it seems like he's gone forever and that he's not going to see Milo again. That's kind of the way their relationship ends, is in their childhood. So I don't know, it needs to be developed a lot more. Like their friendship needs to be developed a lot more, and like maybe don't make this sort of relationship so negative to begin with, because that sort of doesn't play well with the contrast of what happens to Matt Smith's character later on. And I also don't feel like Matt Smith's turn to full-on villain is very well developed. It just kind of feels like that happens within the span of a couple scenes. You know, I think it's basically like he's kind of like, I get with, because he gets into a fight in school, and I think that's supposed to give you a clue that he's got a mean streak to him. But I think it would be, you know, if you switched it around and you had Lucian be the one that was like giving Morbius the name of Milo or something like that, like disrespecting him, and then like having it so like he's always been sort of like, you know, morally gray in some way, and this sort of like friends despite that. I think at least set up that turn a little bit more.
I actually think that there's an interesting turn there that you kind of skirted by, which might have been interesting, which is if Lucian / Milo had been kind of Morbius's conscience when he was younger and as he was growing, because Morbius is the one who's kind of morally, like, he's the guy who's engaging in like illegal experimentation and stuff. He's the guy with compromised morals. He's the guy who's constantly like walking on the dark side. And then he gets this living vampire power and realizes he's gone too far and starts to turn around. And when Milo becomes a living vampire, he degenerates. And so you've got their paths like cross in an interesting way that way, where the good guy becomes the villain and the villain becomes a kind of a anti-hero.
Oh, yeah.
I think that might have been an interesting kind of arc for both of them.
Yeah.
Milo becomes what Morbius was, and Morbius becomes what Milo was. Might have been an interesting play on that.
Yeah. I guess you can't, like, I guess you don't get to have, like, if one of them's degenerated or whatever, you don't get to have some sort of like big clash at the end. You need,
well, that's because again, this movie wants to be a superhero movie so bad, and if they had made it more like The Fly, then it's less of a climactic superhero battle and more of a like final desperate struggle.
You know, Liam is building up to his big fix, which was make this The Fly. And I'm gonna jump in right now and say that could work in an interesting way, and you could still have the real body horror, and you could still have a character degenerate if Milo takes the serum without Morbius's knowledge, but Morbius doesn't find out right away, and Morbius realizes he's turning into like a weird man-bat creature, and he finds a way to forestall that transformation. Like, he works on himself, and he doesn't completely cure himself, but he stops the worst of it. But he doesn't know that Milo has taken it as well, and Milo continues to degenerate, and it turns into a big climactic fight because Milo has become a monster. And you can have that body horror, and Morbius has to destroy him at that point because there's no curing him. There's no going back. Sorry to kind of jump on.
No. That doesn't touch anything I had pitched. Though there's one of the problems I had with this movie is at the end of it, Morbius doesn't fix himself. He's like, Milo, take this antidote. Milo, take this antidote. And then Morbius is like, I'm going to keep being Morbius. I gotta have an end credit scene with Michael Keaton here. I can't not be Morbius. So with what you're pitching, that justifies him not taking the antidote. It's like he never finds an antidote. There is no antidote. He finds a way to stabilize.
Yeah.
And the person who doesn't find a way to stabilize degenerates to death. and that explains how we have a half-living vampire for Spider-Man,
or at least into a horrifying monster that needs to be destroyed.
Yeah, sick. I love that. I keep saying like, oh, make it the Fly, but here's how, and here's my pitch for make it more of a degenerative body horror nightmare and less of a superhero movie. And it's by fixing one of the main problems that I had with the movie. When he gets morbed, we have a quick scene where he's like, look at all this shit I can do. Look, I can lift this stuff and I'm strong as hell. And I'm like, oh man, it's so great. It's so great being strong and good and cool and flying. But also I got to drink this blood. But look, I got this fake blood I can drink, and eventually it's not going to be effective. He figures out that the synthetic blood will not be effective very early. And so we are giving this like long-term ticking clock that doesn't do anything for anyone. There's no actual sense of urgency to that ticking clock. So I don't understand why they have him figure that out so early when that is a much more dramatic thing to have him figure out way later. So it starts with him just like in The Fly, just like hunky Jeff Goldblum doing chin-ups. He's fit. He's feeling good. Milo wants in on this. He wants to give it to Milo because everything's great. And then slowly he starts to like, we also get to spend more time with his powers. Like we see a scene of him like, oh, now he's got these ears and now he's got this, super strength. And we like watch him get these powers and degenerate a little more slowly. And the last thing he discovers in a moment of lost control is that the synthetic blood isn't working anymore. He learns that way later. Right. And to the point where he knows, oh, I've got a day before this isn't effective anymore, as opposed to I've got weeks. Scrambles to make an antidote, scrambles to get it done against a Milo who was like, hey, bro, you were going to give me this stuff. What changed? He's like, no, I just seconds ago, just moments before I was scheduled to give it to you, realized it's actually a nightmare. Because if you remember in the movie, Milo walks in on him like covered in blood, naked in a cell, begging for blood to drink. And Milo's like, I want some of that. I'd love that. Give me that, please. Have Milo want this because he's jacked as shit and healthy, not when he sees his friend as an absolute. It makes no sense that Milo would still want that after seeing him in such a desperate situation. So then your third act is there's one antidote that he was quickly able to make in a frenzied state. The cops are on him. Also, like in The Fly, she has to go, the female character.
Bancroft.
What's that?
Dr. Bancroft.
Bancroft has to go to the FBI to help them in the same way that the woman in The Fly goes to the skeezy asshole who's the only last character in the movie she can trust, right? So now the final climax is super fit Milo versus deranged Morbius versus 3 humans, or what Scott said, and that all still works.
I think that marries well with my suggestion, actually.
Yeah, that's why I was stoked on it.
You have Milo get the serum earlier on when he's jacked. Yeah, this is working great. Milo also takes the serum. Morbius starts to degenerate and realizes that there's a terrible cost. Is not able to cure it though. He's only able to stop it from getting worse. And unfortunately, it's too late at that point for Milo. Milo's run off. He can't find him. He doesn't know what's going on. It's because Milo's turned into a bat monster. And it's hunting people in the street. On his ass. Yeah. So, and then it ends in a tragic fight between what has become of Milo and a Morbius who accidentally inflicted this on the person he cares about most in the world. Yeah. And also Morbius looks like vampire Morbius all the time.
That was part of the stalling process. Yeah. Sick.
Yeah, I like that fix a lot because it definitely increases the emotional stakes in a real big way. Especially for the character of Morbius himself, who feels a lot more tragic. In the movie as written, it feels like they're kind of constantly making excuses for him for having done some pretty horrible things, which is a little strange.
I think. In our version, I think at the end Morbius gets caught by the police. he's devastated by what's happened. The feds catch up to him in the final moments, and he willingly gets taken away. And then if you really want to set up your Sinister Six movie, he meets Michael Keaton in prison.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense.
Oh man, that credit scene was cringy. It was it wasn't even subtle. It was just like what they did. Like, it was so novel when Nick Fury did it the first time at the end of Iron Man, for them to just be like, the same thing's gonna happen. You know, when a guy shows up after the credits and it's like, hey, want to join my team? That's just what we do now after movies end.
And also like Morbius should have been like, when the Vulture's talking about Spider-Man, Morbius's response should have been, "Who's Spider-Man?
Who the fuck?" I have a second fix, and it involves Spider-Man, sort of. Because obviously, even in the trailer, there's like a picture of Spider-Man. It seems like maybe Spider-Man should be in this movie, or don't put him in there at all. That's like, just have it just be its own standalone thing. Don't try to tie it into Spider-Man, but to like what petty half measures to have Michael Keaton just sort of be like, "Do you want to come hate Spider-Man with me?" at the end is like absurd. So
Sorry, no, I didn't realize you weren't done. Go on.
Here's my fix for Sony trying to build a universe. As I mentioned in my version, slow deterioration, 5 minutes before he's got to go give the serum to Milo, and then decide he's going to hold it, is when he's at his lowest, is when he's in the least control. He's on the streets. He's doing something chaotic. In comes swinging a silhouette of a muscular figure on a rope, and it's Venom. It's Venom here to be like, hey, this is a bad guy. Tom Hardy, you said I can only eat bad guys, right? This guy looks bad. You can go ahead and eat him. Venom tries to eat Morbius. They have a cool Act 2 fight. Venom won't eat him because he tastes bad. And also, what are like one of the dumb bat powers he can have? Screechy sonic sounds. Yeah. What does Venom hate? Screechy sonic sounds. And Venom fucks off to be in a different movie later. But that's your Act 2 climax, is like he squares off with Venom, and now you're building up, genuinely building up a shared universe with the characters you've established.
That kind of works, actually. Yeah, and it has the nice little Spider-Man tease. I like that.
Yeah. Even, make them think it's Spider-Man coming in, but it's just Venom to be like, yeah.
As long as we're talking about universe fixes, like I always thought like it's weird that like Sony didn't like try and have their cake and eat it too with Spider-Man. Like there's all sorts of different like Spider-Man, Spider-Women kind of things. So like, why didn't you just let Tom Holland exist in like that MCU universe and just like leave him be, and just make your movie like just do like a Spider-Man series where like Spider-Gwen or something like that is the main Spider-Man, and that you can still have all those great characters that you've got the rights to. You just do like an adjacent thing, and like you're already doing it with like Into the Spider-Verse. It's like right there. It seems like low-hanging fruit, yet they don't want to do it.
Further to that, No Way Home does a crossover with the Sony Spider-Man. So you establish that the Sony Spider-Man coexists in an alternate universe to the MCU Spider-Man. Have an Andrew Garfield show up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Pay that boy money to reprise Spider-Man. He was great in the Marvel movie.
Oh, if you were going to put Spider-Man in this Morbius movie, it should be Andrew Garfield.
100%, for sure. Let him Spider-Man some more.
Yeah.
Let that boy out to Spider-Man.
Yeah. Also, this and Venom Let There Be Carnage should have been rated R.
Yeah, probably.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
If you're leaning into the body horror for this, if you're really going to Cronenberg it up, it's going to be an R-rated movie.
Could you imagine if this was the
Milo
Marvel
would have
movie,
been such a wet puppet. He would have been so.
Yeah. Let David Cronenberg make this movie. I'm going to make this. This is my note for just all people trying to ape the MCU going forward. Don't and just take your collection of characters and give them to auteur directors, and instead of trying to sell us like celebrities as the heroes, be like, we're giving Cronenberg Morbius, we're giving Tarantino the Suicide Squad or whatever. Like, they kind of did that with James Gunn. I'm just off the dome right now, but like, take characters with a really specific premise and give them to auteur directors who can like wring so much out of that premise. Yeah. Like Batman and Tim Burton. Like,
yeah, like DC seemed to be heading that direction with like things like the Joker and and whatever, and like the new Batman movie, which seems disconnected from like Aquaman. I don't think that the new Batman and Aquaman exist in the same universe. At least I hope not.
Yeah.
I would love to see the movie where they try and like ham fist those two together. That would be great. I wouldn't put it past DC to try. But yeah,
exactly like DC was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, you know, doing those individual characters and like, you know, giving directors the freedom to like experiment and try something interesting with a different character. Like the comics are full of like revisions and different takes on classic characters. People love that stuff. And like, there's no reason not to do it. You know, you could conceivably do it with Spider-Man too himself if you wanted to. Go back, like do a noir Spider-Man movie, for example. I mean, that's an interesting take on Spider-Man. So there's lots of different avenues you could approach it with. It doesn't always have to be this sort of start from ground zero, world building, universe building nonsense they've failed at over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah, a Ryan Johnson Spider-Man noir would be dope. Like,
yeah,
I'd watch that for sure.
Yeah, it's like you don't. The problem with the way that Hollywood works these days is like they're so interested in their projections about what they could think they can make bank for that like there's no risk taking. Like they don't take risks anymore. And
they just chased the one time the risk paid off.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, you can hardly blame them because, like, for some reason, people show up to the theaters anyway. Like the last 3 Jurassic Park movies have been varying degrees of terrible, and yet each of those is making close to $1 billion. So they're printing money, and they kind of know it. So, like, I think they've kind of learned that, like, the quality of the film is incidental as long as you give people enough in the trailer and you give them enough little cookies like, oh, this person came back and this person came back.
Yeah,
so
people weaponized nostalgia does make money.
It's junk food. It's junk food. And much like junk food, you've got Taco Bell being like, we put Cheetos on our tacos now. You know, Cheetos. You've heard that name before. Like that's all it is. It's all junk food.
Yeah, it's like the other day when I walked by the macaroni aisle and I saw like flaming hot Cheetos Kraft Dinner. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
That's have taken a turn.
Michael Keaton in a Flash movie is
yeah,
Cheetos mac and cheese. Yeah. So, but I love the fix we found. We got Scott or Greg's stronger bond between Milo and Jared Leto. We got a much better justification for the series of science events from Scott, and then my body horror and Venom. So yeah, I think
we married it all really well. I think
fixed it. And
they said it couldn't be done with Morbius.
Which again, though, I still think the movie we are pitching is like maybe as good as Venom.
It depends on who we have directing it.
And if it's rated R.
Yes.
Yeah. We had lots of thoughts, but so did you. Thank you, dear listeners, for your comments when we solicit them on our various social medias, Facebook, Twitter, what have you. We do love reading them out. We do love hearing what you think. Also, all of you in the chat thread so far, appreciate you being here tonight with us. It couldn't have done it without you, or we could have. It just would have been a regular podcast recording.
Yeah, it would have just been lonely.
But no, we got some listener comments because, of course, you all had thoughts as well. Tack says, I would watch it and offer my notes, but I'm a busy man who can only afford to watch free movies on his phone. So, damn it, who's putting this thing on Netflix?
It's funny that eventually Tack did send us, I want to call it an essay on Morbius, but I have it here. He DM'd a pretty decent fix, and I'll try and read it out here as best I can. So he says Milo and Michael are brothers, and Jared Harris is their father, an old money aristocrat. Milo is perfectly healthy and a right snob who thinks he's the favorite son. He's always dressed to the nines, insincerely cares about the less fortunate, and picks on his brother for fun. Michael is a black sheep. He dresses in ordinary clothes, seems genuinely invested in his work and in helping others. His only acts of rebellion are against his family. Milo, of course, makes fun of Michael's disability, always under the guise of good-natured fun. But he also insists Michael's humanitarian acts are self-serving to aid in finding a cure. He says Michael dresses humbly because it's simply easier. The only difference between us is that I can tie a bow tie, says, what's his name, to Morbius. The plot unfolds much the same way, except now Michael has a direct moral question. Is Milo right about him? Compounding this question are all his illegal actions that lead to him finding a cure. Act 2 reveals that his experiment also involves blood from unwilling prisoners. Milo takes the cure because he's jealous of Michael's powers. Does this sound familiar? And he starts killing to cover up Milo's illegal activities. Their father and Michael's girlfriend are just loose ends. This pushes Michael to accept himself as the monster. He feeds on several innocent bystanders to build up his strength and kills Milo out of revenge, or just to tie up the loose ends. So I do kind of like that. Like, this is just like straight up like a villain's origin tale, rather than sort of like an anti-hero. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, the movie definitely frames him more as an anti-hero. And this version definitely is more of a villain story.
Yeah. Really
Pack is in the chat saying sorry for the long DM. No worries, buddy. That's we love seeing it.
Speaking of folks in the chat, Laurie Plant gave us the comment. You ask how we can fix it when you should first ask why. Why? I mean, it makes good podcast content. That's if nothing else. And I got to watch The Fly out of it, so that's why. As well, Jeff Samsono says, fix one of the biggest comic book movies of all time.
So big they released it twice.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
We didn't talk about that, about how they misinterpreted It's Morbin Time to think that everybody wanted to watch this fucking movie again.
I saw that tweet. It was like, no, guys, sorry, we were really that busy. Put it in theaters. We were busy that weekend. Put it in theaters a third time. We're all busy.
Yeah, no, it went viral for not the reason that they thought it went viral.
Yeah.
Andrew Craig says, my biggest suggestion is don't make a Morbius movie. He was a dumb character when he was created and has never gotten any better. His secondary title is The Living Vampire. No, vampires are undead by definition. You're just really hyperglycemic and low on iron. Take a supplement and get a nose job.
Vampire bats aren't undead, Andrew. I don't know. I kind of like it. I think that you could have a really great Morbius versus Blade movie at some point, based out of it, and have Blade just be like, oh, my usual vampire hunting tactics aren't working against this guy because he's not a real vampire. He's a fake vampire. He's a Wish vampire.
Yeah, he's a Wish.com vampire.
He's the Wish.com vampire.
Yeah. I believe we're getting a new Blade movie, are we not?
We are.
Sure are.
Yeah.
Sure.
Does that fall under the Marvel's umbrella? I guess they still.
Yeah,
right?
it's a proper Marvel.
Yeah.
Disney's Blade. So,
yeah, it's gonna be great.
Aaron Beaver says, recast Leto. Explained why their boat had so much hostile mercenaries on it. Explain how he could fly on updrafts or winds or vibes or whatever. That such a well written joke, Aaron. I'm sorry, I'm screwing it up. Explain how he could fly on updrafts or winds or vibes or whatever that was. Erase the movie and just show clips of Jared Harris putting around the house for a while.
It's interesting. Sorry, you first.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Aaron mentions recasting Leto. We didn't really talk about. It was a controversial casting choice. Also, Morbius in the comics is Greek. Like he's from Greece. And I don't know why they couldn't have kept that. I think that maybe a decision should have been made to make him Greek, and that might have been fine. That might have been good. You could have found a really good Greek actor who was relatively unknown. It could have been a big star-making turn for him. Yeah. I think you didn't need Leto in this role. You didn't need his star power for this movie at all.
Yeah, the star.
If anything, I think it might have been a hindrance.
Got a lot of star power to begin with.
Yeah, I think it might have actually been a hindrance to the movie.
Yeah. I do like the comment about the boat, because like it is weird that like there's like they're being paid to be on that boat, right? Like the people who are like mercenaries on it, right? Like Milo has paid for that boat, and they're just running a medical experiment on it. So like there's no reason for these guys to be running around carrying guns, because there's no sort of danger. They're just on a boat on the sea, just performing a medical experiment. So like, why are they all running around with all these guns? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Jason Mantzoukas as Morbius would be great.
That's
I
so funny.
100% agree, Sally.
Is
I would
Morbin
totally
time?
go for Spooks. Yeah,
I badly want to see that movie now, very badly.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Also, just a comment on Jared Harris. In my version, you don't need Jared Harris as a character. Like he doesn't do. It was one of my fixes we didn't get to, but great as Jared Harris is, that he does need to be in this movie. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't serve any role. Whatever he does could be done by either Milo or the cops. He's
a friendly puppy that the villain gets to kill later on.
Yeah.
That's basically his role in the movie.
Fair enough.
Everybody's really on board with Sally's suggestion that Jason Mantzoukas play Morbius. Jason Mantzoukas, I know you're a big fan of this podcast. Release your version of Morbius.
Okay, here's a question for the chat then, because it is too late for Jason Mantzoukas to play Morbius. Who is Jason Mantzoukas in the MCU?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, if you're doing MCU, you can do a different version of Morbius. So there you go.
He's Tom Holland's Morbius.
He's Tom Holland's Morbius. Oh, I love it. Sweet.
Friend of the show, Olav, at Hugo_book_club says, cast Matt Smith in the lead role. Yeah, I like that as a suggestion. He is the best part of this movie.
Yeah.
Allow him to have fun. The whole movie is a ponderous, pretentious, portentous, overwrought melodrama to it, except for when Matt Smith is around. They got the guy who directed Life to do this. Not a bad director, but not a fun director. This does not need to be a high-end art movie director or anything, but Daniel Espinosa, who's only okay, is the wrong fit for this material. You need someone with pulp sensibilities, a Paul W.S. Anderson type. Which again, not Paul, not PTA,
Olav, big Event Horizon stan, huge on Paul W.S. Anderson.
If you don't know, Paul W.S. Anderson did the other vampire ones, the Lycans and the
Underworld,
yeah. Also, get to the Morbin earlier, says Olav. It takes 80 minutes of screen time before anyone even starts to morb. The audience is there for the Morbin. Give them Morbin time. So, and then of course, Olav's last comment is it just needs a theme, by like an Eminem or a Chad Kroeger or a Seal, something that really says 2022. So.
Yeah, I don't know. We really liked the end credits, Olav. I'm just saying, we all loved it.
Did this movie have a single that was released with it? I
don't think so.
No,
the entire soundtrack to the movie is so inconsequential and bland that I literally can't remember any of it. So
yeah.
On that note, this is slightly adjacent, but like you guys are giving credit, talking about the end credit sequence being awesome, and I tend to agree. Like it's a fun end credit sequence, but also thematically irrelevant, I guess, is how because there's not neon throughout the entire movie. It's not a part of the aesthetic. Your aesthetic was smoke. That was his speed and all that kind of stuff. Your aesthetic was smoke. That's why when I edited the intro, it was all smoke because that's
also for the record, Greg. If there's one real big thing. If there's one real big thing that makes it so that we should do more live shows, it's your intros, because that was Awesome.
Very good.
Thanks.
Very well done. A couple more comments here. Munsey said, "This is a tough one because my instinct is to say make Blade instead if you want a Marvel vampire movie, but that doesn't really work in this case because Blade has already famously been made." So, yeah, again, I think there's every idea has merit. If there can be 4 seasons of an Alfred Pennyworth show, there's no reason we can't make a Morbius movie. Because stories are universal. Stories, there's only one story, it can be done. John G. KBO says, ditch Jared, make Matt Smith the lead, hire Moffat to write the damn script.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if Moffat might be okay on a one-off. He's not, I don't know if he's a good series writer, but I think, in an isolated movie, he might be okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about Stephen Moffat of Doctor Who fame for those that might not. We're just get Moffat to do it. Moffat.
and Sherlock. And
yeah.
A lot of people really wanted Matt Smith to be the lead in this movie. And I think we've just learned that it really should have been Mantzoukas. So, sorry, Matt Smith.
Our friends over at the 80s Movie Podcast says, I wouldn't fix it. I would leave it and focus on any other 800 plus characters Sony has the rights to because they fall under a licensing agreement with Marvel. Sure.
Yeah.
I love how many people just don't make this, which is again, what you say about junk food, but yet the stores are plenty stocked with junk food. So someone's got an appetite for it. Someone's eating
I think there's an interesting
Cheeto
story.
Mac and cheese.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting story here, but just any concept can work as long as it's written well. It's just a lot of the time I think they're just thinking we'll make a Morbius movie and that'll be enough. We don't have to worry about the rest, and that's
Josh Scar says Sony this is his comment. Sony sells the Spider-Man movie rights to Disney for $5 billion, and Sony can use that money to invest in CEOs and CCOs that know how to not leak every movie they're creating. But Disney allows Lord and Miller to continue creating Spider-Verse movies through Sony's animated division.
Because Disney famously doesn't have any sort of animation division.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, that's essentially what I said. Just double down on the one that worked. Just do more Spider-Verse stuff.
I mean, they are. But
I know they are. I mean, they're doing it. I mean, they're not making
a
universe out of it.
No,
as far as I know.
Just good. Yeah.
Maybe that would make it worse. I don't know. Maybe
The ending. Please don't. It's gonna happen now.
Yeah.
Hero Zero says, how to fix Morbius? Tricky. I'd have to go with changing it to Morpheus and make it a Matrix prequel.
I mean, fair.
But yeah, see, so there's no reason a Morpheus movie couldn't work. If they wanted to make a Morpheus movie, they could.
Prequels are hard, but they can work. I don't know if you guys are watching the Rings of Power, but it's pretty good. I'm enjoying it. So it's just a matter of how you approach it.
Indeed. And our final comment, Dr. Gordon B. Schmidt says, have Morbius do something heroic, even once, so he can actually be an anti-hero. Chemistry and real connection between the characters. That's what Scott was saying. Consider what a science vampire is not. Just act like it would randomly have characteristics of vampiric folklore. Take it less seriously.
I mean, if you're taking it less seriously, though, you're going to lean into the vampire folklore stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I made fun of that off the top, that Morbius gains vampire powers from a bat, and it's like, that doesn't work. I suppose that's how it works in the comics, though. So whatever. Just lean into it. Lean into the pulpiness of it.
Indeed.
Caleb says he's enjoying the rings too. Good man. It's very fun. This comment kind of reminds me that I might have lost my train of thought here.
Oh,
darn it! That's
on me.
The Dr. Bancroft's sacrifice. We didn't talk about that, but that was really awkward. When she sacrifices her life and lets Morbius drink her blood, right? So he gains power, can go fight Milo. I really felt that was very cringy, and the way that the movie is edited, she almost gets kidnapped, or she does get kidnapped off screen.
Yep.
And you have like no sense of like where they are. Like I guess they're on a rooftop, but like again, like it's framed really tight, so you have like no sense of scope on like what's going on. And like all of that just like combined for like the kind of saddest self-sacrifice I've ever seen on screen. And I think especially since it's a woman character, like sacrificing herself for the man, like it's just like, because it was handled so poorly, it just felt kind of icky to me. I was not a fan of that moment at all.
And then she becomes a vampire for some reason.
Oh, right. Was there like a stinger moment?
Yeah.
That's
part of the little ending bit. She opens her eyes again, and she's got like Morbius vampire eyes. So for some reason, his bite made her a vampire. Because again, he's a folklore vampire because of vampire bat DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that serum does a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Very strange.
Indeed. Well, this concludes our in-depth discussion on Morbius the Living Vampire.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And our live stream. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll you can of course follow us on Facebook. I have some notes on Twitter at I have some notes, and on Instagram at I have some notes pod. Please subscribe, rate, and review. Wherever it is you listen to a podcast, do the thingy that says, hey, I like this, whatever that button is.
You know what? Emily missed out on a lot of stuff, and I sure hope she missed out on Morbius. But there's some good stuff she missed too. And Emily and Brienne take in pop culture-filled movie classics that Emily has never seen but should have on the podcast Emily Missed Out. And you can check that out right now at albertapodcastnetwork.com.
Today is Friday. However, this isn't a live show. We're permanently so
Scott, can you hear Greg?
No, I can't. Greg.
Yeah, I think the music is screwing up.
Oh, is it over top of my mic?
Yeah,
there you go.
Such a smooth. Yeah, move closer to your mic. Oh, it's so smooth, dude. You so close. There we go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, should I start again?
Yes.
So it's Friday, which is not our usual release day, which is usually Monday. However, this isn't just for the live show. We'll be permanently moving our release date to every second Friday from here on out. So catch us in 2 Fridays from now for when we go Tomb Raiding with Angelina Jolie. This live show was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for participating and chatting. Thank you to Anita, Sally, Caleb, Brienne. Who else is in here? Jeff, Aaron, Lori. Just thanks so much for making this such a good time and well worth us putting on a live show. And we hope to do it again soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Until then, I've been your host, Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver. Keep watching the skies.